BIM for Masonry, commonly referred to as BIM-M, is a masonry industry initiative geared towards promoting masonry in a BIM environment. We are pleased to promote the following video, which is one in a series, to aid users to model masonry within Autodesk Revit. These videos are for those who are already familiar with the Revit interface and modeling in Revit. Please visit bimformasonry.org for all that BIM for Masonry has to offer. In this, our fourth BIM-M tutorial video, we'll be showing you an introduction to the Masonry Unit Database, also known as the MUD. This has a web interface and an extension for use in Revit. The MUD is still being developed, and the Revit extension is currently in its beta phase. However, it is available for your use, and we will show you some of what it has to offer. To access the web portion of the Masonry Unit Database, go to mudb.org. Before we explore the MUD, a little background on the MUD. This project was created by BIM for Masonry to start building a database of masonry shapes and sizes, colors, and other properties. Currently, all the shapes are generic, but BIM-M is working with manufacturers to get their specific products into the MUD, so you can use this as a tool to get specific manufacturer products into your projects. Now, you can scroll down and see some of what the MUD currently contains. Or we can also search for a specific CMU shape. So we can search for a specific type of masonry, and as you can see, it pulls up a regular hollow core masonry block that meets the criteria we're looking for. And if you click on it, you can now see you can download different file types of this piece. And it also contains the dimensions, the number of cores, the color ID. Or we can also exit out, click down here at the Revit add-on, scroll down about half the page, and we can download the extension. So instead of having to download stuff individually on the website, we can go ahead and get it directly in Revit. Now that it's been installed, we can go ahead and use the extension. So under Add-ins, Masonry Unit Generator, go ahead and select US Unit Measurement System. And you can see there's different unit types here. So we're going to go ahead and use structural masonry. We're going to click on it, and you have all these different sizes. You can scroll down, and we're going to go ahead and open 8. So as we open up 8, as you can see here, it immediately starts to auto-populate with a lot of different options. And I'm not interested in clay, I want concrete. So instead of having to scroll through, we can also get specific with these tabs. So I can click on concrete. And again, there's still a ton of different options here, but we're a little bit more specific. So you can either search through and try and find what you're looking for, or you can also search using keywords. And as you can see, that brought up a fair amount of shapes, but probably not specific enough. So let's go ahead and make it a little more specific. And now we can scroll down, and a little bit faster, we can find a standard 8-inch block. So to load it in, you can either right-click and add to project, and that will add it to the project. We can right-click and add to library, and the library tool is kind of like a shortcut of what would be considered commonly used. So here I have one already set up. I can go ahead and save it in there. And this way now, instead of finding it, I can go to the library tab, refresh it, and the unit appears. Now to get into your project, you can click on it and then just drag and drop it into the view. And there we go. Go ahead and place it in the project behind, close out of the extension, and now it's in our project. And we can go ahead and move it so we can take a look at it a little bit further in depth. And if we come over here to the right, under generic models, you can also see I preloaded several others as well using that add to project methodology. So now that we have our block in the project, we can go ahead and do a couple different things. One, as you can see here in 3D, it is fully there, fully modeled. So one of the things you can do is you can make a mock-up of the individual blocks on a small scale. Obviously, if you wanted to, you could build an entire project out of these, but that would take a little bit of time. So what we can do is we can use our section cut to help us through. As you can see, you can even see the walls. So we're going to select them. We'll go ahead and copy them up 8 inches. And then we'll offset them back 8 inches as well, mimicking a standard running bond pattern. And we can go ahead and select all the blocks and copy it up a couple times. That way we can kind of see a small mock-up in Revit. And then we'll go ahead and go to that 3D view. And as you can see, we can start to see, what our wall would look like with our standard CMU blocks. Now go ahead and select them all. We're going to go back to our plan view and copy it over. And what I'm doing here can be used also with like veneer, for instance. So we'll go ahead and we're going to change it to one of the other types of CMU we loaded, specifically of a different color. This is where it could become really handy if you're comparing things like veneer. Because now if we go to 3D, you could compare the 2 different veneers, or even if you're inside of a building and you're going to expose CMU, you can compare the different colors or bond patterns for those different CMU blocks as well. So now we'll come back to plan, we'll delete those guys out, and the other thing is, with it being the Masonry Unit Database, you can also use it to specifically find blocks that are in colors or blocks that will be specific to manufacturers and build in a smaller database. So the MUD contains hundreds, thousands of shapes, sizes, conditions, and once you kind of load the ones you want to keep a standard on a project, for instance, you can just bring in the ones you're looking at and keep them in the project on a different view, but kind of lock them down. And that way, if anyone messes with a detail component you have or something doesn't look right, you can always have these here as your standards for people to come back and reference. So you can go ahead and you could put some dimensions on them if you want to, but this way, if someone noticed something was off on a detail component, you could come back here to your standard and make sure that it's always the same. And now you can see they're kind of side by side, so you can just always have your just standard shapes always there. And if you click on edit type, as the MUD develops, this is where they're hoping to put more information. For instance, the colors, thermal properties, some of that other stuff you saw online where it had the colors and shadings. They're hoping to get more of that information, so you could have your standard here, and then as you build your normal wall, you click and drag and it has the wallpaper finish. You could then assign the colors because it would be saved in these standards. So it's just another way to help eventually tie everything together. This wraps up the overview of the Masonry Unit Database web interface and extension for Revit, brought to you by the BIM-M initiative. Remember, this has just been released and it's still currently in the beta phase, so while you can use it, continue to look back at bimformasonry.org to see when additional updates come out. On behalf of the BIM for Masonry team, we hope you enjoyed this tutorial and look at the introduction to the Masonry Unit Database.